What if the lie didn't fall apart because of a confession, but because someone pressed record at the wrong time? Because according to what's now circulating, this wasn't a rumor, a blurry photo, or a story passed through blogs. This was a 3am recording, clear, time-stamped, and impossible to explain away. Kirk, leaving Jasmine's house in the middle of the night, caught on camera by someone who wasn't supposed to be there, Rasheeda's own cousin. That detail alone changes everything. 3 in the morning isn't a misunderstanding. It isn't business. It isn't coincidence. It's a time when explanations stop working and behavior speaks louder than any statement ever could. According to the claim, Kirk didn't look confused. He didn't look rushed. He looked comfortable, like this wasn't new, like this wasn't a mistake, like this was routine. And that's where the panic really starts. Because when family is the one holding the footage, the situation stops being containable. This isn't a stranger chasing clout. This isn't a random neighbor with a phone. This is someone inside Rasheeda's circle, someone who understands exactly what this video means and exactly who it's going to hurt. What makes this moment explosive isn't just that Kirk was there. It's when he was there, how he left, and who caught it. According to those who have seen the clip, there's no urgency, no surprise, no shock at being seen, just silence. And silence at 3am says more than excuses ever could. This isn't about speculation anymore. This is about movement. And tonight, we're breaking down why this late-night recording might be the clearest proof, yet that what was happening behind the scenes wasn't accidental, emotional, or impulsive, but ongoing. Because once someone is caught on camera when they think no one is watching, the story stops being about denial and starts being about how long it's been happening. According to the narrative now spreading, the reason this video hit harder than anything before it is because time removed all plausible deniability. 3 in the morning is not a grey area. It's not an overlap of schedules or an innocent misunderstanding. It's a moment where intent becomes visible without anyone saying a word. When Kirk Frost was caught leaving Jasmine Washington's house at that hour, the conversation shifted immediately from what if to how often. Because people don't casually end up in the same place at 3am unless it's part of a routine. What made this even more damaging is who recorded it. This wasn't paparazzi. This wasn't a random blogger. This was Rasheeda's cousin, someone with proximity, context, and motive rooted in protection, not clout. That detail matters because it reframes the footage as concern rather than exposure. Family doesn't record lightly. Family records when they believe something needs to be seen, not speculated about. According to the narrative, the cousin didn't chase Kirk or provoke him. They observed, they documented, and they let the footage speak for itself. What people noticed immediately was Kirk's demeanor. There was no panic, no confusion. No visible surprise at being outside Jasmine's home at that hour. According to those who have described the clip, he moved like someone who had done this before. Calm, familiar, unbothered. And that's the detail that unsettles people the most. Because comfort suggests repetition. It suggests this wasn't a one-off lapse in judgment, but part of an ongoing pattern that simply went unseen until now. This is why the video matters more than any explanation that might follow. Explanations rely on trust, footage relies on reality, and once reality contradicts the story people were given, the burden shifts. The question is no longer whether something inappropriate happened. It's how long it's been happening without consequences. According to the narrative, this is the moment where denial lost its footing, because you can argue words. You can't argue timestamps, locations, and familiarity. At this stage, the damage wasn't just emotional. It was structural. Because when someone is caught moving freely between two lives at 3am, it forces everyone involved to confront the truth they may have been avoiding. Not that something went wrong once, but that something had been allowed to continue quietly until the wrong person pressed record. According to the narrative, what truly escalated this situation wasn't just the late-night visit, it was who documented it. When footage comes from within the family, the story stops being gossip and starts becoming intervention. This wasn't a random phone held up for attention. This was someone close enough to understand the stakes, close enough to recognize patterns, and close enough to know that silence was no longer protecting the right person. That's why this clip landed differently. It wasn't meant to embarrass, it was meant to confirm. Family members don't record unless they feel something has crossed a line repeatedly. According to those familiar with the situation, Rasheeda's cousin had allegedly noticed signs before: inconsistencies, unexplained absences, stories that didn't quite align. But suspicion alone doesn't move people to act. Confirmation does, And seeing Kirk walk out of Jasmine's house at 3 a.m. provided exactly that. It removed doubt, it turned concern into evidence. And once evidence exists, silence starts to feel like complicity. What also makes this footage powerful is its ordinariness. There's no confrontation, no running, no chaos, just a quiet exit in the middle of the night. According to the narrative, that calmness is what makes it unsettling. It suggests comfort, routine, familiarity. And when behavior looks routine, it implies repetition. That implication alone does more damage than any argument ever could, because it forces people to ask not what happened, but how long has this been happening? This is why reactions reportedly intensified after the clip surfaced. It wasn't the shock of being seen. It was the shock of being seen by the wrong people. Family doesn't negotiate narratives. Family responds emotionally and protectively. And once family becomes involved, the situation stops being manageable through explanations. According to the narrative, this is where pressure mounted behind the scenes. Because now, the story wasn't just public, it was personal. At this stage, the footage didn't need to be analyzed frame by frame. The context did the work. Time, location, relationship, and the presence of family. All of it combined to create a moment that explanations could not erase. According to the narrative, this is where the situation crossed into a point of no return. Because once family documents behavior at 3 a.m., the question is no longer whether the truth will come out, it's who will be forced to face it first. According to the narrative now unfolding, this was the moment explanations stopped working. Not because no one tried, but because context did the talking before anyone could. A 3 a.m. exit doesn't exist in a vacuum. It carries assumptions, history, and implication all at once. When Kirk Frost was seen leaving Jasmine Washington's home at that hour, the usual defenses, misunderstanding, coincidence, timing, collapsed under their own weight. The story people had been asked to believe no longer matched the behavior on screen. What intensified the impact was the absence of urgency in the footage. According to those who viewed it, there was no scramble, no startled reaction, no attempt to hide. That calmness suggested familiarity. Familiarity suggests repetition. And repetition reframes everything. It turns a single incident into a pattern and a pattern into a history. Once a history is implied, the conversation shifts away from intent and toward duration. How long this had been happening without consequences. This is where the recording became more than proof of presence. It became proof of comfort. Comfort at 3 a.m. doesn't develop overnight. It's built. It requires prior access, prior permission, and prior confidence that no one would be watching. According to the narrative, that confidence was the real giveaway. It suggested that this wasn't a risk taken on impulse, but a routine assumed to be safe. And routines only exist when boundaries have already been crossed and normalized. The involvement of Rasheeda's family made the implications heavier. Family footage isn't meant to spark debate, it's meant to stop it. It draws a line between speculation and observation. According to the narrative, once the family had visual confirmation, the question stopped being "is something going on?" and became "what are we going to do about it?" That shift matters because it moves the situation from rumor control to decision-making. At this stage, every potential explanation felt late. Even the most carefully worded response would have had to overcome the simplicity of the image. A man leaving a woman's house at 3 a.m. recorded by family. No captions required. No backstory necessary. According to the narrative, this is why the footage carried so much weight. It didn't accuse. It didn't narrate. It simply showed a moment that couldn't be reconciled with the story that had been told for months. According to the narrative, the real damage from that 3 a.m. footage didn't come from outrage or confrontation. It came from what happened next: quiet recalculations, private conversations, and a sudden shift in how everyone moved. Nighttime behavior has a way of exposing daytime lies because it removes the performance. There are no meetings to blame, no schedules to hide behind, no excuses that survive the hour. And once that reality sets in, people stop arguing about what they saw and start reckoning with what it means. What followed, according to those close to the situation, was distance. Not dramatic distance, strategic distance. The kind that signals something fundamental has changed without announcing it publicly. Calls went unanswered, conversations shortened, access tightened. This is how trust dissolves when proof replaces suspicion. Because when evidence exists, people don't need closure to move differently, they just need certainty. And that footage provided it. The hardest part of moments like this is that they force alignment. Stories that once lived in parallel lanes are suddenly forced into the same frame. The public narrative can't move forward without acknowledging the private one anymore. According to the narrative, that's when pressure intensified behind the scenes, not because of blogs or comments, but because family involvement changes the stakes. Family doesn't forget, family doesn't negotiate optics. Family remembers, and that memory becomes part of every future decision. Another consequence was the collapse of plausible explanations. Anything said after the footage would have had to explain not just presence, but comfort. Not just location, but routine. And those are much harder to defend without revealing more than intended. According to the narrative, this is why responses became limited and carefully measured. Not speaking became safer than explaining. Because explanations invite follow-up questions, and follow-up questions invite timelines. This is also where the story stopped being about a single night. The night simply revealed the structure. Once people saw how freely someone moved between spaces at that hour, they began reinterpreting everything that came before it. Missed calls, late nights, sudden trips, unexplained absences. The footage didn't create doubt, it reorganized it. It gave shape to concerns that had been dismissed as overthinking. By this stage, the situation was no longer salvageable through denial or distraction. The night had already done its work. And once the night exposes the day, the only thing left is response. Not reaction. Response. Decisions that quietly redraw boundaries and make it clear that whatever was happening before is no longer acceptable moving forward. At this point, the footage speaks louder than any explanation ever could. Because when someone is caught leaving a house at 3 a.m., recorded by family, the story stops being about rumors and starts being about reality. No captions are needed, no interpretation is required. The time, the place, and the comfort captured in that moment already answered the questions people were afraid to ask out loud. What makes this situation hit harder is that it wasn't exposed by strangers. It was exposed by someone close enough to care about the fallout. That detail changes everything. Family doesn't record for attention. Family records when they believe silence is doing more harm than truth. And once that line is crossed, there is no putting the narrative back in the box. This moment wasn't about catching someone slipping once. It was about revealing a pattern that had been moving freely in the dark. And when patterns are exposed, every past explanation gets re-examined. Every late night, every absence. Every story that once sounded reasonable suddenly feels incomplete. That's how trust unravels, not all at once, but retroactively. Now the question shifts to you. Do you think this was a one-time mistake caught at the wrong moment, or proof of something that's been happening for far longer than anyone admitted? Does family involvement make the footage more credible, or does it complicate the situation even more? And when behavior contradicts the story people were given, which one should matter more? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Keep it analytical, not emotional. If this breakdown helped you see the deeper layers, like the video so others can find it. Share it if you believe behavior tells the truth faster than words ever can. And subscribe for more long-form breakdowns that focus on patterns, power, and what people reveal when they think no one is watching. Because sometimes the clearest proof isn't what someone says in public, it's where they are at 3 a.m. when they think no one is looking.